right, so I just got out of the sauna. Kids and families asleep in there. So I figured there's probably no better time than the present to do a little episode review of season 9, episode 1 of Alone. I watched it while I was in the sauna. I'm in my little shed. I got the Alone moose behind me, which actually is more of a coincidence than an awkward flex of any sort. But it's quiet in here, you know. Anyway, getting to episode 1, I just was finally able to watch it a few days late, but I'm just gonna go through the people as I see them, and then as they introduced them, and then my thoughts about each of their, you know, what they showed. The first person they showed was Carrie Lee, and it's genuinely fun for me to see her as I've spent some time with her in the woods, and you know, run into her here and there in Sandpoint, which is where she's from. It's where you know, the closest town basically to where I grew up. It's where I went to high school. I saw her at the bow shop actually, not too long before she left, I guess, for Alone. And but between then and what it looks like on the show, it looks like she was able to bulk up nicely. So that's going to be helpful out there. She also is able to quickly get a grouse, which is really nice. Early day 2 grouse. Fewer people got early game, which is great to see. And I also, when I was there, shot a rabbit on day 1, got some day 2, etc. And it really is encouraging. Like especially if you're one of the people that didn't bring a ration, because if you get that couple pounds of food out there, it feels like, man, you just saved a whole item rather than wasting an item on a couple pounds of food. So good for her getting that. She's got a predictably positive attitude, and I expect that to be there for the majority of the show for her. Then we got Benji. He's going to be somebody that I'm really interested in watching, and it's funny because I did my little contestant quick overview and prediction prior to watching this episode, and some of it did ring true still after seeing episode 1. Benji I'm real interested to watch, in that of the people they showed so far, he seems the most likely to get big game. Of course, I didn't realize he had 30 years of traditional hunting experience, which is really invaluable out there. So so he should be fair, you know, might be able to capitalize on that. And to add to that, I've seen with almost everybody they showed saw some kind of bear sign out there. So that's really nice. I actually didn't see any on my territory for all practical purposes. I saw one old track at the very edge of my territory. We're at an edge with what I learned later was Monia's territory, I believe. But there was one old track there. That's the only sign I ever saw. But that said, he's confident. But he did say, you know, he's out there and excited to, how he worded it, figure out the puzzle. And I've worded it in the same way. Every place you go in the wilderness, it's its own puzzle that you have to try to unlock the pieces to thrive in. And it genuinely is sort of a puzzle, and it's fascinating. It's just a creative experience. I'm trying to work your way through that, so that's good. I like his really food heavy strategy. He said he's just going to slap a tarp up real quick and pretty much just focus on food, which I really don't mind that strategy. In a really wet place like that, I would, because you can build a little fireplace, decent dry shelter in less than a day, I would recommend that, because man, when you get soaked, you get your shoes wet, your socks wet, all that, and maybe it's going to rain for days. You do want a place you can go and really dry your stuff out. And I don't know, maybe he'll have that, I'm not sure, but it would be something you'd want, aside from just a stick with a tarp over it. But he got the squirrel. And then he built a fly rod, which was fun to see. That's one thing I do a lot of on the wilderness courses I take people on. We build a lot of different types of fly rods and spinning rods and lures and flies and et cetera, that I like to, use up in the wilderness, teach people how to build out of whatever. So he just went with a real simple Tenkara rod. And what a awesome little fishing spot he has where the fish get trapped in there. He just hammered a bunch of those. So that'll be interesting to see how long that continues. That could be really, really nice. But I also like his item bringing the salt. That's something I did think about. It was one of the items on the short list that didn't make it, but the other two were the tarp and a gill net. Anyway, it's going to be good to continue to see him. He does, really is focused on bear, and that is the big game animal I almost feel like this show would be most likely to produce, and the one we still haven't seen. So we'll see if that changes. It is a bit of a time limit. I don't know when they go to hibernate, when winter's going to hit up there, what exactly when they're dropped, but you do got to make it happen early, which these guys, people seeing sign out there, it's like straight focus, straight to that right away. He didn't get a ton of fish, but you'd be wondering if kind of getting those, just using some of those fish as maybe a foul smelling bait might not be a bad idea. Jessie is next. They didn't show a lot about her, but she did build a serious walking stick. Saw that really fresh bear track. And again, very exciting thing to see right when you get there. But she's going to be tough. I think she's going to be tough. But again, other than the intro video and just a little bit of walking around, they didn't show a lot of what she was doing. Juan Pablo, they did show more of, and that was real interesting. He has he reminds me, as Clay did last year as we were watching. Maybe it's the edit, maybe it's the actual personality, but Juan Pablo reminds me a little bit of myself or my edit or whatever it is. But specifically, he's got that. I like that he said likes to have a negative attitude, which was also what I do in some of those high stakes situations. I find that I like. It's not so much a negative attitude because I am enjoying myself and this and that, but it's like you expect the worst. You really, that's a cliche, but really expect it to suck, expect the worst, and then all you ever will be is pleasantly surprised when things work out. And that's just something that I definitely lean into out there. You notice other times you'll see people like, I hope it wins this week, or I hope that, and then it's like, that's just a real brutal mental, rigmarole to put yourself through. It's better to just expect it. Not gonna win this week, not gonna win this week. It's gonna be 6 months out here. It's gonna suck, and and then see if you're pleasantly surprised. If not, hey, you already were expecting the worst. So it's kind of a mental trick you can do to avoid disappointment, but also thrive in difficult situations. So I liked that. Definitely something I also do. I've called it like pessimistic optimism or optimistic pessimism, you name it, I don't know. He also has a good attitude when he sees the bear. He knows that, oh man, I got to go after this. This is a good sign. It's not, some people are like, oh, bear, I don't want to see that. But no, you want to see a bear, and you want to see one right away, and hopefully they drop you off the helicopter on top of a bear. But but he's got invaluable experience. That time he spent in the boreal forest, not very many people go through that to such a degree that they really starve, except unless they are on a loan or something like that. So that was invaluable experience, and it taught him one very important lesson, and that's the value of fat. And so he put on 60 pounds, which is insane. But shoot, that buys him basically 2 months, just like that. So I do like his after my prediction last week, if you watched it, I was leaning towards Juan Pablo just because of that prior experience. It's so similar to Alone, and I'm sure the lessons are so relevant. But and I still would be after watching today. It's like I like his attitude where he goes out there. He's less of a like, this is my plan. I'm gonna go out there and make it happen, and more of like, you know what, you go out there and you just meld and go with the flow, see what nature offers. Something I really try to help teach people on the courses too. It's just like there's different angles to approach nature, and it's better not to fight it. It is a it is yeah, anyway. Real I like is, get out there and trust your creativity to guide you through rather than having a fully robust plan, because those are never going to pan out the way you expect. And sure enough, his creativity, like with his stove, you see it happen right away. So all that stuff, I really, I like him, and I'm going to enjoy watching more of him for sure. Jacques, we get to see some Jacques, and he sees bear sign too. Lots of bear this episode. And he found a foot trap, which is cool. Who was it last season that found the bear trap, the barefoot trap? Like, she didn't get to keep it, but he gets to keep his foot trap apparently, which was going to be really nice. That's typically what we used in Siberia. They're slowly starting to switch over to like more conibear type traps, but all those guys out in Siberia, they still just have all their old Soviet traps, so they're very effective. Got a squirrel, didn't he shoot a grouse too? Same thing. So you got a squirrel and a grouse. Again, just super encouraging right off the bat. Get you going. One thing I couldn't tell on the video, but it made me remind me, one thing when you're shooting at a squirrel up in a tree, if you can like move to where the tree's behind the squirrel, it's a good idea. That way if you miss, you stick your arrow into the tree rather than launching it, way out there. So, but he did find the grouse that he hit, which is nice. Finally, we got Eager. Again, it's interesting in the pre-show like little thing I did. I pointed out that, like, man, he's got that Armenian, Egyptian, heritage and stuff. And as I predicted and related to that, that weighs heavily on him. Not weighs, but it's a big part of his drives, motivation, the perspective that he has going into suffering. It's like when you're directly connected to people who have been through horrible things, like the Armenians and the Copts and the people of that nature. It puts you kind of in your place on complaining. So, and that's a useful skill in a survival situation, because complaining doesn't do you any good. One thing about when you're on alone, any situation like that where you're by yourself, it's just things can suck, and it just doesn't do you any good to complain. It's like you're the only one that can fix it. The whining about it to the camera is not going to change anything. The only thing that's going to change anything is if you stand up, go outside, and make something happen, So so that's good. He's got related to that perspective thing. I like he pointed out that 100 days goes by in a blink. So again, it's perspective that he has, which I completely agree with. I remember them, I think it was on day 66 or something, but I remember him asking me, "Oh, it's been 66 days. How do you feel? You've been out here 66 days. That's a long time." I was like, a long time, 66 days. It's like if I went back home now, I'd walk in the door and ask my wife, "Hey, what's new?" And then she'd be like, "Nothing." You get caught up on 2 months, that's nothing. So anyway, having that perspective that even 100 days, man, that goes by in a blink. It's relatively just not that much time. So that's good. It still doesn't mean you can provide the calories to get there, but he's got the right mental attitude to, it's not like, oh man, I gotta make it 100 days. That's a long time. It's like, honestly, 100 days, even if you're away from your family or whatever, once it's over, if you're successful, it's nothing, Well, and some of the panning shots of his, I'm sure but it does look like rich land. And with all the bear and you know, some people catching fish and grouse and squirrels already. It seems like really rich land. So most of my predictions, I was like, well, that sounded pretty good for just my random guessing. But if somebody were to get big game, it's like, I kind of said, I don't think anyone will, but there's a lot of bear sign out there. So there's a chance. But anyway, those are some of my thoughts on episode 1. Thanks for watching. And I'll try to do as many of these as I can before I hit the wilderness myself for the summer. So anyway, cheers.